Welcome to Framework and our ongoing series on The Shield, the great anti-hero cop show from the early aughts, or mid-aughts, all the aughts, really. I am John Bernhard, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me this week is Chris Prentice. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us, joining me, rather, Al, being out on assignment, to speak about The Shield.
Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. This is one of the top seasons for me, so I think this is going to be a fun discussion.
That's interesting. This is season 2 of The Shield, of course. This is sort of a crucial season. Didn't feel like it at the time, I would say, but this sets up a lot of the end game of this series, sort of slyly, surreptitiously, you might say.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of seeds planted that don't really start blooming until much later on. But I mean, I think as good a job as season 1 did of kind of establishing all these characters, I think season 2 really takes it another step forward, and we're getting even more background, and everything is just a little more polished than in season 1. I'm not saying it's tremendously better than season 1, because season 1 was great, but I just feel like this is the season where the show kind of really sort of found its footing.
It definitely figures out how to be a long-running show this season. Like, it's not kind of just throwing stuff out there and giving it a shot, which season 1 does a little bit. There's a little less grotesque violence in this season than in season 1, which is a low bar to clear. I mean, it would be hard to be as over the top with it as season 1, and they give it a shot, but there's only a few honor rapes in this season, I believe. Yeah.
We do have the burning necklaces. That's established here. right in the very first episode.
See, episode 1, yeah. Tires. They what would you call it?
They call them burning necklaces. That's the whole putting the tire around the guy, then setting him on fire, and that's something that they do to great effect in this in the opening episode.
Yeah, this is also the episode with the attack and rape of the 9-year-old girl.
Yes,
and then they brand her with a tattoo on her face. It hasn't lost its fastball, the Shield.
Yeah, it's interesting because they first kind of established the whole tattoo thing with Kristen Bell, because she's on she's on the episode as basically one of the main villain of the season, Armendio's previous rape victims, and that's what kind of sets up the whole thing, that he likes to kind of brand his victims with that tattoo. And it's funny because I've got the Hulu that has the ads. I don't have the non. Yeah, so it's like you see Kristen Bell in this episode of The Shield, and then she's basically every commercial break hyping all the mental health pills that the hers pills, and it's just funny to go from her as the gang member rape victim, and then segue into her doing her shtick about, hey, do you have these mental health issues? Hey, you can get your pills online. No problem. So what a difference 20 years makes.
This show is just full of people who end up being bigger stars and going on to huge, like most of the, I would say most of the actual cast of this is their biggest deal. But then you got like Kristen Bell. Melanie Linsky has a pretty significant role this season.
Yeah, she's everywhere now. But she's big. Ask or let me see. Can you guess who my favorite guest star was this season?
Oh, it's Carl Weathers, right?
I mean, yes. That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
That's crazy to see Carl Weathers show up. Like, I mean, I guess he was just doing TV roles at this point, but and still is. That's looking back, that's actually been his career for the last 25 years or so.
For the most part, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I really liked him.
Oh, always. When is Carl Weathers bad? Yeah.
Not often, no. Yeah, I mean, he really sells that kind of, this is what your future could end up, Vic. So, just be
Yes.
careful. This is the road you may end up going down between all the issues with your family and everything going on with you in the department. And so I thought, Weathers did a perfect job with that.
There are a lot of cautionary tales for Vic this season, I would say. A lot
Yeah.
of look out, look at this foreshadowing, Vic. This could be you. A lot of that. There's
Yeah.
the big Gilroy episode as well. And I
Oh
mean, Carl
yeah.
Weathers is pretty explicit about it. He's just like, I didn't want to see you. I didn't want you to see where I live, Vic. I didn't
Oh
want
yeah.
you to know. Oh yeah, loser Weathers. That's such great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
I mean
character
that
should have been
they
on the show more. I guess Weathers doesn't come cheap,
he
but
well, he does.
yeah.
He made one more appearance later on, but yeah, he was only on it twice. But
Hmm.
but yeah, he's outstanding. So yeah, he was my favorite of the guest stars this season. But though there's a lot of pretty good ones.
There are. I mean that kind of never stops with the Shield.
No, no,
If
they
they
they always
want
had
an
good.
actor, they get him. Like there's some incredible people who show up on this show. Obviously, like you got like Glenn Close's and Forrest Whitaker's, but pretty much every like throughout it has an awesome
Yes.
talent appearing.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those shows that just attracted a lot of great talent. I mean, it was right there kind of with the Sopranos in terms of, hey, if everybody
Hmm.
respects this show and they all want to be on it. So yeah, I mean once people kind of started to figure out that wow, this is just more than just your kind of routine cop show, that yeah, they were getting some real heavy hitters to come in and do sometimes just one episode, but or in the case of Glenn Close and Forrest Whitaker, I mean entire seasons.
I mean, this was really like kind of an incredible time in television too.
Oh
This is
yeah.
when it kind of hit a point where it's like this can be as good as movies. This doesn't have limitations. There'll be sex and violence and bad language, all the stuff you would expect to see in an adult cop movie, but it's
Yeah.
just going to be on TV. But the writing is going to be maybe a step beyond what you'd see in a movie a lot of the time. You can really, really get into it and do scenes. All the things that you that like homicide, life on the streets, kind of like was leaning towards kind of comes to its fruition here in the aughts when and you get shows like Damages that are kind of built to have big movie stars show up and really chew into some acting, and this is sort of the one of the vanguards of that.
Yeah, this
Hmm.
era is when all that sort of started. I mean, I think it basically kicked off with The Sopranos, and then as we went into the early 2000s, you were starting to see it on more and more shows, and some did it better than others. Like a show like Rescue Me, that's one that I thought started out great and was like, oh man, this is like the Shield with firefighters. This is unbelievable.
That's what
And
they wanted it to be, yeah.
yeah, and for a few years it was, and then that one kind of fell apart. But yeah,
Yeah.
there were lots of shows and lots of attempts to to kind of ape what the Shield was doing. I remember there was one that there was a one show where Patrick Swayze basically kind of had
Oh
his
God,
version of the Shield. It was the
I
Beast.
forgot about that. I
Yeah,
forgot about the
that
Beast. Yeah,
that
that's
was
right.
that was that was him sort of trying to be Vic Mackey, and that one I think I watched like the first two episodes, and I was like, man, I'm sorry, Patrick. It's just not happening.
That's a fun phenomenon, which is sort of the shows they try to piggyback on the success of the the ones that
Oh
are
yeah,
really hitting, like the Shield ripoffs, of course. But then I don't know, Low Winter Sun is always the one I remember because they promoted it so heavily during Breaking Bad's final season. They're just like, yes, come for this final 8 episodes of Breaking Bad, and then be sure to stick around for Low Winter Sun with Mark Strong, and no one did. But
yeah.
yeah, there's the TV landscape is littered with those. I mean, up until today. What was Kurt Sutter's one they keep trying to get me to watch now that I'm watching The Shield on Hulu? The medieval one,
The
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 Executioner's Song or whatever it is.
yeah, I never watched that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah, I didn't. I think by the time that one started up, I was pretty much waning on Sons of Anarchy. I was still watching it, but
Oh,
it was more like out of obligation than enjoyment,
oh, well,
and so
sure. The
I
last
just
five
kind of
seasons of that show,
I'll
last
be I'll
three
be
at
a little
least.
more
Last three
generous
at
than
least.
that. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I to me once they started having bombs in the kegs of beer, that's when I was like, that's that was kind of I was like, that's enough for me. It's this one has lost its juice. But I did watch it to the end, so I did get to see Michael Chiklis
Oh
ram
yeah,
in right through Jax Teller. So that was kind of worth it.
yeah. It's the most overwrought ending to a. Well, okay. This is not a Sons of Anarchy podcast.
It's
This is a
related. It's the
Shield
same
podcast. It
universe.
is. It is. Yes, it is. So it will frequently come up as it does. I mean, I think our episode of like I don't know. We talked about it in like the girl with the dragon tattoo. We always talk about Sons of Anarchy for some reason. Uh, it's just one of those shows. I think we're mad that we spent so much time watching it, me and Al, because that was a show that had no discipline about its time, its length. They were
Oh
episodes,
yeah.
regular mid-season episodes, an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh
The
yeah.
Shield was not allowed to do that. It was always 45 minutes, and blessedly so. Mhm.
Yeah, that whole fascination with the 75-minute episode like that, I mean, The Shield might have had maybe a couple of those, but not to the degree of Sons of Anarchy, where it was like every single one.
Mhm.
And basically 15 minutes of the Sons of Anarchy would be like an ending montage.
Of course.
That's yeah.
I mean, the Shield's not above the ending montage for
No,
sure,
no,
but
they do it, but
but
not to the length that
Suns
that.
did two or three an episode generally.
Oh God, yeah, it was borderline obscene, basically.
Mhm. A very indulgent show.
Yeah.
My point was just this one is taut comparatively, and yeah, when they
Yes.
if they go over, which they do sometimes in the later seasons, it is earned. This season,
Mhm.
I think there's a couple 50-minute episodes. The opener in Tijuana is a little longer. Because they shot in Tijuana, I imagine, which is very
Y-
cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the opening episode of this is Vic has to cross the border to go get a drug lord's brother, Armadillo's brother.
Right.
Yeah, and it's typical Shield shenanigans.
Mhm.
Shane and Lem doing something stupid, and they got to fix it, and then there's a raid sequence, and one of the great pleasures of the Shield is watching a police raid with the strike team, with just seeing Vic out there in his leather jacket and his bald head, which just it looks like a bullet covered in flesh, man. It is just it's so great to see him running into a housing project with guns drawn. It's comfort food.
Yeah, well
And
I
you get
think
that at least every couple episodes.
yes, yes. Well, I think my favorite moment in the that premiere is there's a great Ronnie moment where
Hmm.
the car takes a bullet and he basically just I just leased this car. That's I think Ronnie sort of starts to get a little bit more to chew on in this season.
Yeah,
So I
Ronnie's coming into his
I
own here.
yeah, I appreciated him. There's one of the great Ronnie moments is in the second one episode after Vic does the old range face gag to Armandillo. And
Hmm.
so it's a real tense moment. He burns Armandillo's face. It's right on the range. It's just horrible. It takes Shane and Lem to grab him and take him off of there. And Vic, he has to, he walks out of the house and he's just so intense. And like Ronnie's outside and he sees Vic come out and he's all tense and he's all wired. And like Ronnie kind of makes like a little motion like he's gonna go try to console Vic. And then it's like he almost thinks better of it and he's like, nah, I'm not even gonna mess around with it. It's like he doesn't say
Hmm.
anything. He just kind of he makes a little motion towards Vic, like, oh, and then he just, the hell with it. I'm not even gonna mess around with this. You go rage out and do what you got to do.
He's in the absence of really any characterization at all in the first season.
Yeah.
Ronnie is just sort of becomes like um almost an extra. I mean, we get very little from him he is part of this essential team of four, though, that we are charting. And I think the show kind of realizes this in season 2. It's just like, we can kind of do something with this guy. Apparently he wasn't really an actor, or I don't really know the David Reese Snell story, but I know they didn't intend for him to do much. I imagine he was probably going to get killed at some point, something like that. But they come to a really neat choice here, which is that he's kind of an unreadable, cold guy.
Yeah.
That he's a little bit darker and a little bit more hardcore than anyone kind of realized, because he's quiet. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's down for whatever they want to do. That's neat and a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, he comes off as actually pretty smart a lot of the time because he's almost like he's not
Definitely the
really
second smartest guy on the team, without question.
yeah, like he doesn't make rash decisions. He doesn't really make decisions based on emotion. He's very
Mm-hmm.
logical. He always seems to have good advice that the team should be taking, and maybe they don't always take it, but they should be.
Yeah, he also has no real conscience. It seems like,
Yeah,
he's not conflicted about anything in the way that everyone else is to some extent. And maybe
right.
though, but that kind of just feels like he's less bullshitting himself than the rest of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the other guys are kind of full of shit,
They're all full of
especially
shit.
Vic. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. We just don't know enough about Ronnie to know how full of shit he is. So maybe that's another reason
fair
that
enough.
he
Yeah.
comes off pretty well. It's like we
Hmm.
don't know about his baggage.
I mean, but yeah, you just know he's fine with being a criminal. Is the main sense you get this season.
Yes, yes.
Interesting. We started with Carl Weathers and Ronnie. Yeah, but we did. Um,
Hey,
uh,
perfectly valid.
they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna
Hmm.
get to all of it. So season 2. Let's see. There's not really a main plot this season. I guess you would say the money train is the main plot this season, but there's also the Armadillo plot line
Yeah.
and Laney the civilian auditor plot lines, and these are all kind of jockeying for prime position of the season plot line, in the ways that other shows would have a more defined kind of like a big bad or whatever. This is a little more diffuse because it's juggling 3 things at once, really. um
Right.
it gives it a little less like forward momentum and obvious direction, but that's kind of the vibe of this show, at least at this point anyway. It is more procedural. You'll have cases of the week. Maybe it's a 2-week case, or maybe it's
Yeah.
like a Dutch and Claudette storyline that'll kind of track for 4 or 5 episodes in the background and come to a head, that sort of thing. It's a neat structure for a show, and you can get away with it with these 13 episode seasons quite well, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I thought the pacing of this season was perfect. Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like they introduce the Armadillo and you get all of that, and I think that whole storyline works really well. I think he's a great villain for
Yeah.
the season. So they set him up perfectly, and then right when that kind of is about when it comes to an end, then they really go heavy on the money train, and I think it all really gels perfectly. And I think even a lot of the smaller storylines that go over the season, like when Danny kills the Muslim gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of that's another storyline that kind of goes throughout the whole season here and there, and there's just everything really comes together really well. All the storylines I felt, I think, and I mentioned it before. If there is some weakness, it's maybe the stuff with Julian. That always
Yeah.
kind of just they. I don't think they ever really knew exactly what they wanted to do with him. So yeah, I think that if I had to say that there was one plot line that doesn't quite come together, it's his. But everything else I thought would work really well this season.
Julian kind of like, yeah, I feel like they're still trying to get a lot of use out of Julian, and they kind of do every obvious thing you can with him this season,
Yeah.
um they kind of just follow the path they've set for him, and then they feel like, well, I don't know, we need to juice this up. What if his ex-lover tries to extort him and expose him? and it's sort of just like, this is a little extra and not as interesting as
Yeah,
everything else going on. And
right.
we've kind of run out of, I don't know, um, narrative plank for this character to run on by the end of
Yes.
this season. Like there's not much else for him to do other than just
No.
kind of live his life, which I think he does a few little
Yeah.
things, but this is basically where he ends. And he's a less profile character going forward after this, if I recall.
Yeah. Everything they kind of give him after this season, it just seems like it's crumbs. He's there. He's there. He's part of the ensemble,
Hmm.
but I don't know. That was just that's kind of the one character on the show that I feel like they never quite really knew what they wanted to do with him, and so there was a lot of back and forth with his character.
Hmm.
Um,
The
yeah,
actor apparently told them he didn't want to play a gay character anymore, so
yeah.
that
Well,
probably writes him into a corner a bit. Uh,
yes. Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
he
you would
never
you
stops
would think,
playing a gay character, but,
yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah,
you would think the answer to that would be next, but it just doesn't. I guess they wanted to keep him, and despite his real life incidents, I do think he's a pretty good actor. But
he is. Mhm.
there just wasn't really any material for him after this season.
Have you heard the details of what he was arrested for? I think we talked about this last time. I don't know if we got into it at all. It's
Well,
messed up.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And I
It's
kind of read some Wikipedia about him during this season, and
yeah.
I was just like, "Oh my goodness, this sounds like a Shield episode." Yeah, he
It
killed his
it
wife.
really does.
It's,
Yeah.
mhm. And
It's it,
his son testified against him in
oh
court
wow.
because he heard the whole
Jeez.
thing. Real messed up. Real messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, crazy stuff. It's yeah, it's one of those things that like I'll be, during this rewatch, it's like every now and again he'll pop up on screen. It's like I'll be like, "Oh, that guy's in prison." It's a
Yep.
weird kind of thing, but that
Hmm.
unfortunately happened, and um, having not as juicy a character in the later seasons turned out to be the least of his problems.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, he's sort of. It's just weird having him on the show at this point.
Hmm.
Maybe they should have. You kind of wish somebody else was there.
Yeah,
Maybe he would
yeah,
have had more to do. They would have figured out something better for this character going. It doesn't matter. We're about done with Julian
yeah,
by and large
yeah.
for the show. I mean, he's around, but I think that what he does actually have in this season starts out okay. With his conversion therapy and getting married and having to tell his wife what his deal is. That stuff all works. It's just when it gets overwrought with the ex lover, then I'm just done with
Yeah.
Julian.
Well, and then
um,
and th-
yeah,
then falling victim to the blanket party orchestrated by Frank Grillo.
yeah. Frank Grillo as young racist. Um,
Yeah,
or well, not racist, I guess. He probably is
just a
racist, but a homophobe primarily.
yeah, yeah, just
Hmm.
just an all around bad guy.
Yeah, piece of shit cop. A very Frank Grillo role. To be fair,
Oh yeah,
and
yes,
and he's great.
he's
It's great to see him.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's one of those actors that like, I mean, he's like he just shows up in everything now. I mean, the
Hmm.
amount of movies he does in a year. I think he's just one of these guys that I mean, he's been acting forever, but he didn't really start to hit it big till like he did Warrior. I think that was kind of maybe the movie where people were like, "Oh, that was kind of a showcase supporting part for him." And it was like once
Hmm.
that happened, I think he really started to do a lot more stuff. And then obviously being in the Crossbones, that really gave him a big bump.
Sure.
And so I think he's just one of these guys that was kind of a fringe actor for so long that once he sort of hit it in like he was probably around 50 and he's just like I'm just doing whatever's offered to me. I don't care if it's great stuff or not so great stuff. I'm just doing it all, and I'm going to take advantage of it. So I enjoy him. He's a good actor.
Oh, no, he's awesome. The
Yeah,
Gray, I believe, is when
that's
he
another
started
one.
when he popped from me. He's really great in
Yeah,
that Liam Neeson survivalist film, and
yeah,
yeah, he's got his own franchise now. If you recall, he's the Purge guy. He's
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
he
Well, he
carries
actually,
that.
what's interesting is he had a
And
good
Driver, is that the other
series.
one? Yeah,
That was one that was for no, it was
Netflix.
I think was it Wheelman? Was
Oh,
that the
Wheelman,
one?
that's
Was
what it
that
is. Yeah.
yeah, that was yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, he had a series called Kingdom, which was all sort of based around the world of mixed martial arts. It's actually a good show. I'm not really a huge mixed martial arts fan. It's like, I'll watch it here
Hmm.
and there. I'm not real big into it, but it was a really good series. And actually, it's filmed in that same style as The Shield. I mean, it really
Hmm.
has that same Shield look to it, just about the world of mixed martial arts. But yeah, I mean, whoever was making the stylistic choices on that show, you can definitely see the Shield has had an influence all over it.
Well, is it? But you're saying it's good. How long did it run? Was it?
I think it was three
Was it a low winter
seasons.
sun deal, or was it? Okay,
No,
three
no,
seasons.
it went
Yeah.
3 seasons. It's good. It's a good
Hmm.
program.
I don't know
Like
if
I
I've
said, you
heard of
don't
it, to
really
be
have
honest.
to. Yeah, you don't have to be a because I'm not a big fan of mixed martial arts to get into it.
Hmm.
There was really good characters, good writing, and yeah, Grillo was the main star of it.
Hmm.
It's a good show, and I think for anybody that liked The Shield, they should check it out because it just has a very similar look to it.
Well, it sounds like Lights Out to me. If you recall that, another FX
It's
program. Yeah.
yeah, that was
Hmm.
one I wish had more seasons. That was a great show. I loved that one.
Yeah, sort of a boxing version of the Shield, if
Mhm.
you will.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was almost
Um.
like
Yeah.
it was basically like the really dramatic version of Rocky 5. That whole series was like
Yeah.
if you took basically everything about Rocky 5 and turned it into a season long, very dramatic show, you would have Lights Out.
I just a sidebar here. I think Rocky Five is a good movie. I kind of like that movie. I get
I
why people don't. I think it's all right.
I don't. I mean, I don't enjoy it. It's my least favorite of them. I do love Richard Gant as George
Yeah,
Washington Duke.
the
He is
Don King
so
villain.
good.
Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah,
he's in that movie. He's awesome. Uh huh.
he's incredible. His scenes I get a lot of enjoyment out of. But for the most part, it's just it's a very it's just such a 1990 movie, and in some ways, I mean, I love that era of movies, but man, it's just the music and just kind of the whole attitude of that movie is and it just and Tommy Gunn is Tommy Morrison as Tommy Gunn, it just
I
doesn't quite work for me.
I like that character as written. I think that's a an
uh,
interesting character. Tommy Gunn is not great. But the actor, which one is he? Tommy
Tommy
Morrison's the
Morrison,
actor,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He
Yeah,
sucks a
as
little,
Tommy
but
Gunn.
I think the as devised, I think that's a good character and a good foil for Rocky. And I like the idea of the ending at least. Uh, where it's a
Yeah,
street fight. That's kind of fun.
I
Okay,
mean, then
okay.
it's like you get, and then it's also the
I'm
ghost of Mickey. I mean, I don't need the ghost of Mickey. Just, it's
I
look,
like the stuff with his son. I think that's an okay movie. I'm not
just
prepared
do
to
a
mount a really spirited defense of it, but
if you
I
really
think it's
want to
overhated.
bring back Mickey, then just do like a flashback scene. That's just an actual, to go do the Godfather 2 thing and just have a scene that takes place before everything, and that's fine. But just I don't know the whole way it was all set up was I don't know, just my least favorite of the, and that's actually my favorite franchise of movies, but that's my least favorite of them.
I think I mean, if they, yeah, I wouldn't have minded a whole movie about Mickey's ghost, to be honest.
Oh wow, okay, well.
Yeah, if it was just like if Rocky Five was just a haunted house movie with no boxing in it.
Well,
It's like, hey, I think it's Mickey. I think he's back. I think that'd be fun, right? What a
na-
swerve.
now that Amazon basically has kind of the almost the rights to the franchise, you might be getting a Ghost of Mickey show in some capacity.
I,
That
I'll
all that
watch it.
stuff's on the
Sure.
table. It's all on the
Hmm.
table now, and much to Stallone's chagrin because he has no ownership of the franchise. But yeah, Amazon they might be they're going to exploit it for whatever they can.
Hmm. We should talk about Rocky sometime in detail. But today
Oh
we're
yeah.
talking about the Shield season 2, of course,
Yes.
and yeah. So Armadillo. Let's continue our Armadillo conversation here.
Sure.
A very strong villain. A very like a classic Shield bad guy, I would say.
Oh yeah.
I like they cast this actor, this sort of pretty, very handsome man, with
Mm-hmm.
this sort of gentle demeanor, as I think the most fucked up character the show has presented, at least up until this point. A
Yes.
monstrous dude, who's basically they do a very good job of establishing this guy as a danger and a threat and somebody
Oh
you
yeah.
want to see them take down through extra legal means if necessary. Like this guy is he's a bad guy. I don't like this Armadillo very much.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, as soon as we see the tattoo on the little girl's face,
yeah.
that's, I guess as they say in wrestling, that generates heat right there. And everybody wants this guy taken down, and you don't care what horrible, corrupt things Vic may have done. You want Vic to take care of this dude, and yeah, so he's they set him up perfectly as a great villain. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what that actor has done since, but man, I thought he was excellent on this show.
I looked because yeah, he is excellent, and apparently, biggest thing is he's one of the major roles of of Mayans, I guess
Oh,
the
okay,
Sons
all
of
right,
Anarchy spinoff, which makes an enormous amount of sense, and he has a course on Sons of Anarchy.
yeah,
He's just
okay,
been doing stuff like this for 20 years,
okay,
and yeah, and he's a
yeah.
Mayans lead. Hmm.
Well, that's kind of makes sense because the actor that played his brother, who he has killed,
Oh
is
yeah,
I believe his name's Emilio Rivera, and he's been, he was the main Mayan when it was on Sons of Anarchy, and then I know he's been, even though I don't watch the Mayan spinoff, I know he's been a principal person on there as well. So yeah,
mm.
kind of makes sense
Love
that
him.
they all these guys, yeah.
He's one of the best parts of the Sons of Anarchy. Actually, he's great
Oh yeah,
on that.
no, he's a good
A lot of
actor.
the
I always
actors are
like
pretty
seeing.
great on that show, really. So it's
Oh
not their
yeah,
fault.
it wasn't a problem with the
Yeah,
cast. It was
well,
just
they're
the
quite
the
good.
material. Yeah.
Mm. Um, I guess the surprise with Armadillo is that he leaves the show so soon. You think this is going to be, the seasoned villain because he's so
Right.
hateful and such a an obvious antagonist for everyone, really. And then season 8, he's killed kind of without a lot of fanfare, sort of
Yeah.
anticlimactically, murdered in lockup with a knife that was planted on him by Shane and Lem, and to stop him from talking, which it's surprising, and I don't know, does it cut the momentum of the season down a little bit? Maybe for me, that's I guess one of my issues with this season. But I don't know that it's bad in the context of the whole. That this season doesn't have an obvious structure. I think that's probably good in the long haul. Um,
Yeah.
I
I didn't
do kind
have
of
I
miss
didn't
having some sort of climax with him, maybe more. It
I
does
don't
have
know.
good narrative value, though.
It didn't really bother me too much how they dispatched of him. I thought it kind of made sense within the universe of the Shield,
It
and
does.
just kind of how quickly people can be killed, and just how that way of life. You're not always going to get this very grandiose death. Sometimes you're just going to get shanked in a jail cell. And it's funny because that episode where they do kill Armadillo, it's almost like the total shit on Danny episode,
Oh
because
man,
it's
yeah.
like
It's the shit
it's
on
almost
Danny's
like
season.
yeah, it is the whole season, but definitely this episode, because it's like within 2 minutes. I mean, I feel like it's within 2 minutes. She's rejected by Dutch. Outside. So she's rejected by Dutch. She's blamed for Armadillo's getting stabbed in the cell. She goes on suspension, and then she gets rejected by Vic. because she makes this one last ditch. Hey Vic, I'm kind of down right now. You wanna get together? And he's nah, it's just not a good night for me. It's just it's like it's literally like 2 minutes. All this shit happens to her. It's like I felt so bad for her. I mean, yeah, it's a rough season for her character.
I believe she's also getting harassed by the widow of the guy
Oh
she
yeah,
shot too in that episode. Yeah, quite a bit.
yeah, it's all
It-
that,
mhm.
getting the call that her mother passed away.
That's that episode. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like yeah, they really put her through the ringer this season. It's pretty wild.
That's kind of her story this season. Is awful things happen to her that aren't her fault all the time.
Yes,
And
yes.
ultimately, I guess it's sort of like the cost of Vic's or the strike team's bullshit is just like here's a casualty that basically is your fault, and you're gonna own up to it. No, you guys aren't. Okay, fine. And that's kind of how it
Mm,
leaves it this season with Danny. And yeah, we're starting to see. I mean, evidence that the show knows what it's doing. You know that that it realizes these are the bad guys. As much as you want them to take down Armadillo or even get the better of the civilian auditor, really, this season, they know what they're doing the whole time, and
yeah.
very good stuff.
Yeah, one aspect of this season that I liked is that, this is where, Claudette is
Yeah.
basically not looking the other way. And
Hmm.
it's kind of the season where, in the first season she was kind of, well, look, you let Vic be Vic, and he serves his purpose. Just, I you, we do our job as detectives, and you let him do his thing, and that's just how this business is run. But I do like the change with this season where she's much more active in trying to tie Vic in with everything that's going on, even though it's not what Aceveda wants, because Aceveda is basically kind of in cahoots with Vic this season for the most part.
Neat turn. I think both these character choices were good. I think that first off, Aceveda. By the way, as you were saying the last time we talked the Shield, yeah, this guy's good.
Yeah,
This guy, wow, he's a good actor. I really enjoy his work on
yeah,
this show. He's
yeah.
excellent. Hmm.
Just like, yeah, like I said the last time, he's the character that now rewatching the show that
Hmm.
I'm so much more fascinated by than I was when watching it originally. It's yeah, he this every time he's basically on screen, I'm like, oh man, this guy is so good, and I'm glad. If for nothing else, I'm glad to go through the rewatch just to appreciate his work, because oh, so good, so good.
Yeah, Benito Martinez, excellent work,
Hmm.
and I think the show correctly realizes that he can't be the ultimate um, antagonist to Vic. Like he's too compromised to
Right.
actually stand up to Vic and in his stuff because it will take him down too. And even Aceveda realizes that by the end of the season. So
Yeah.
moving him on, well, I'm going to miss his heavy presence on the show. Makes sense. And yeah, he's still got another season or so, I believe, of being really irregular. But yeah, um, it's he's as good as that choice is. I think replacing him with Claudette as sort of the primary antagonist for Vic is brilliant. Um,
Yes.
this is a good choice, and they kind of keep this rolling throughout the rest of the show. There's certainly flashpoint moments. I kind of wish it was more, though. I mean, I would almost say I could imagine a version of this show where she's the second lead that really works as well.
I think the degree that they have her as as prominent as I don't know. I feel like they did a really good job of uh, incorporating her into having all the storylines with her and Dutch on all their different cases, and then that's kind of the micro, and then the macro of her becoming more and more uh, d- distant with Vic, and more, trying to take him down. I don't know. I felt like they handled that just right. I don't think they needed to go more than what they did with that.
Probably not. I mean, it all worked out, obviously.
Yeah,
But Claudette, I do feel like, I think we talked about this a little last time, is a character that had more potential than she really got. Mostly just because CCH Pounder is so exceptional, and this is such a great
yeah,
role for her, and I
yeah.
love watching her do this. So like she could carry this show if she had to, and they don't really call on her to do that, but man, does she plus up every scene she's in, and you believe every relationship. I think she gets a little bogged down in all the Dutchness of it, really. Like that's her most frequent scene partner. It,
Oh,
it
yeah,
seems to
yeah.
me, yeah. And
Well,
Dutch is fine, but
yeah. Well, I
he's
mean,
not the guy.
yeah, but speaking of him, there's the episode where there's the murder of the woman, and there's a maybe a heavier set gentleman, we'll say, who's the main
Oh, this.
suspect, and Dutch basically decides to plant evidence to basically make it look like this guy did commit the murder, 100%, because he couldn't get a confession out of him. And then
hmm
he regrets doing that, and he goes back and grabs that evidence. I thought that was a really interesting moment for Dutch, even though
Best
I
scene of
didn't
the season
really.
for
Yeah,
Dutch. Yeah.
it's it's a great scene. Though I gotta admit, I didn't really understand that murder. Like, it's a date between these two people. At some point, the woman takes out a candy bar, and that enrages the guy to the point that he's gonna then kill her with her bra. I I don't know. Maybe I need to go back. That murder didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but
Okay, it's actually one of the worst case of the weeks they have. Certainly this
yeah.
season, it's quite poor. I'm afraid I if I have to, I think Dutch has some bad writing this season. I'll be honest. I think it's
Oh,
kind of
really? Okay.
obvious. I think the way that the Melanie Linsky stuff is well performed, obviously with Melanie Linsky, and it's compelling, but it's Dutch is really stupid. Like I think
Yeah.
that they maybe over seasoned the stupidity of Dutch this season. He's a little too obviously dumb, and I don't know. I find that this character most interesting when he's sort of I don't know uh, a really good detective who just has these sort of crippling social problems and
Yeah.
anxiety and like when he's Mr. Monk, or something like that.
Yes.
That's a little that's my favorite tone for Dutch when he's actually a fuck up at his job as well. I kind of lose interest in him. And in most of this
That's
season
fair.
he's a fuck up at his job.
Yeah,
Because
by
of
and
kind of
large.
obvious writing, even that the fat guy episode there, aside from the really good scene where he stops from planting evidence at the last second, it is kind of like I don't buy that he got his mojo back by fat shaming that guy, and I don't really buy that the guy inciting him to rage by berating him about being fat is enough to secure a conviction. I don't buy that either.
Yeah, yeah, as good as the planting the evidence scene was, I just that whole murder, look, they have to come up with all these different murders and all these different motives that people have. So, they're not always going to be
hmm
winners, but I just that whole case, I just kind of I felt like, why he went on a rage because why did she all of a sudden just have a candy bar? I don't know. It, it's one of the few times where, like, I was kind of shaking my head at the crime that was being, normally you just kind of take the crime at face value and you don't
hmm
even really question it. But that's one of the few times where I just kind of found myself just puzzled by the whole case.
Yeah, yeah. He's what else has Dutch got going? He's got the pedophile thing at the end. There's always a pedophile Dutch is chasing.
Yeah, well, it's
Um,
the shield, so yeah,
yeah, exactly.
it's
There's that they're playing with him like sort of on the outs for not clearing enough convictions, and his job is on the line. And knowing what we know about cops, I'm just like, no, it isn't. He's fine.
yeah,
But at the same time, you know, I don't think that really brings very good material out of Dutch either. He becomes sort of
yeah,
petulant, like a little baby man for a while there.
yeah,
There's moments of this season where Dutch and Shane kind of have a little bit of like Will Ferrell and Step Brothers kind of just
Yeah,
oblivious child kind of behavior. And you go with it because the actors are good, but it's a little silly uh,
yeah. No,
sometimes.
that is fair. That's absolutely fair. Um, now, what did you think of the flashback episode, co-pilot?
Ah, this is one of the least popular episodes of the show.
Yeah,
It
I
is
don't understand that.
it comes immediately after Armadillo's death in episode
Right,
8. So it's like,
right.
okay, we're gonna sort of clear, calm down, take a breath, and we're gonna go back to before the season started, or the show started. Before,
Hmm.
not that far back though. It's
No,
There's some
that
logistics of it that kind
yeah,
of make me a little confused.
they
Mhm.
sort of mess around with the timing a bit if you really
Yeah.
start to break it down. But I'm not gonna. I don't want to be too much of a nitpicker on that. I mean, but I like the episode. I don't know why it's one that people always like kind of take a crap on. I don't know. I thought
Mm.
it's just kind of interesting to see here how it all really began. It's almost like when a comic book has an issue zero, and that's
Hmm.
kind of how I look at that episode. I don't know. I like it.
It's okay. I don't think it's awful. I don't think the Shield ever really had an awful episode. It was
Yeah.
always it was at least competent, and I think you get actors really elevating material, selling some stuff that is a little obvious and avaricious in the writing, which this episode is full of. I don't need be a scene, with Vic and the strike team where they're like, okay, we might have to bend the rules this one time, but it'll just be the one time, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need that,
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
um, there's a lot of that sort of thing in there. I one of my favorite parts of that flashback is the old guy, Detective Gannon.
Oh
Sort of the
yes.
asshole that Dutch idolizes, has that scene when he comes in and gives us Dutch's backstory. And
Yeah.
the way
Yeah. The
the way he presents it is, this idiot, his wife was going through recovery and she cheated on him with her coach. What a loser. Just
yeah. The
that made me smile a little. That's funny. Very 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 cruel to Dutch, uh, but that is sort of the show, what the show
that
does.
this yes, they're cruel to him all the time. So it's fitting
He
that
kind of
even in
deserves
the
it though. It's
flashback,
okay.
to a degree, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he does enough scummy things on his end to
Hmm.
warrant a lot of the abuse that he takes. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I kind of liked seeing sort of all these characters a little more optimistic, a little more like,
Hmm.
hey, we're gonna make a difference, and we're gonna do something special here, and this is gonna be this is we're really gonna do something, and I mean they do some special things, all right, but I don't think it's as optimistic as they think it is in that flashback episode.
Yeah, I think I think the actors sell it. I don't think it's bad. But it's not my favorite episode. That's for sure. I would say one thing I really do like about that episode is seeing Gilroy back in
Hmm.
in a familiar kind of like mentor position. As sort of a collected guy who has the power in the relationship. Immediately contrasted with the next episode, which is the big, the big Gilroy um, kind of
Return.
blackmails them and tries to get them on tape, and uh,
Yeah.
and has a lot of just lots of drunk loser energy. So seeing those episodes
Yes.
1, 2 after another, I thought that was great, and John Deal is awesome in that role.
Oh yeah,
Kind of probably his
yeah,
best
he's
work on the show, I think, is in this season actually.
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
Hmm.
he does get the one of the more shocking moments in season one when he kills the one gang member. I mean,
That's cool.
that
Yeah.
always kind of blew me away. But yeah, in terms of his acting and his character, it's these two episodes I think where he's really given the most to work with, and he really nails it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that actually improves everything about the character and his sort of role in the cosmology of the Shield. So that's something very good, I would say, about the flashback in particular. And
Yeah, I
and yeah,
mean,
I
he's
like that guy. He's a good actor, good
yeah,
role.
yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, he's always good. I mean, he shows up in everything. It's like, and he's also, you need that character, and you need to kind of see what he goes through, because basically later on in the show, it's kind of that's what they want Lem to do, and he's kind of seen what's
Hmm.
already happened to Gilroy, and that's why he's not going to be doing that at all. So it's a key. It's again, it's a seed that is planted for later in the series, and seeing what happens to Gilroy, it kind of makes you it makes you believe that there's no way Lem is interested in doing the same thing.
The way this show uses these sort of cautionary tales, these um, like I was saying, it's a little broad sometimes, and we have a lot of them this season and throughout. Gilroy explicitly, and as well as Carl Weathers, is just I think both of them literally say to Vic like, "Don't be like me, Vic." I think that's actual lines both of them have, but it is really cool that they set up that the life that these guys are living and the choices they are making means that when it ends, it won't be okay. Like that things are not going to be all right after they're done with this. There's no getting away clean, and that really informs the decision for the money train, and it is really
Yeah.
exciting for these characters going forward as the show writes it. This show has the reputation of having one of the best memories of any television show, and it really does. All this setup, all this this sort of perdition that awaits everybody um, if they ever get caught, if something goes wrong, if they're not fast enough or whatever, is it's great for the stakes. This show has incredible stakes all the
Oh,
time.
always.
Yeah, and it's stuff like this that really pads that out and creates it, and gives you a visceral sense of what awaits these dudes if they make a mistake. And that only intensifies as the show goes on. Obviously, I think once Anthony Anderson's character shows up, all that goes into overdrive. Uh,
Yes,
and Yeah,
yes.
so this is in this is not my favorite season of the show. I think I think there's some obvious writing, some odd structural things like that. I don't love Dutch's plot, stuff, some various things. But my God, does like the spine of the show and all the important things that are going to happen and where this is leading really does subtly get set up here, like all of it, or at least anything beyond just the Terry Crowley murder. Um, this is really good architecture and structure for the next 5 seasons of TV. And I mean, nowhere more so than the money train, right? That's sort of the big thing. That's where it
Yeah,
all
yeah.
starts. Yeah.
That
Hmm.
whole just the sequence of taking down the money train is, you know, it's kind of they Vic is working a case, and he can't really be there when it all starts, and so it's basically got to be Shane, Lem, and Ronnie, kind of
Hmm.
starting out. And it's like, yeah, man, it's like there's just so much intensity in that episode. And it's also, I guess we should mention, this is these sort of batch these last few episodes is where they introduce Tavon, and where
Oh
he
yeah, Tavon.
joins
Right.
the strike team. So it's like now you've got this other kind of wild card of like, well, there's a new guy here. Is he undercover like Terry was? What are we how much info are we gonna, they're always having to kind of be careful, when they're talking, what they're saying. And there's just, it's all done so well. And when it builds up to
Hmm.
that final robbery sequence, it's just great. And it's just really, really perfectly edited together. It's just such a good finale to the season.
Tavon is a very strong addition here at the end of the season.
Yeah,
Really good. I like this actor. I love how he's written, which is you expect him to be a little bit, a little like an obvious foil and just kind of being, you know, um, a little more goody two shoes than everyone. Not at all. He is a little bit frightening and a little
yeah,
bit dangerous. So that's why he's a wild card. He's not worried that he's going to report on them. They're worried he's going to do something crazy. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
Love that. Nice subversion of what I expected. That was great. And a way
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep the
That
show kind of doing fresh relationships and ideas. So cool.
exactly. It's
Hmm.
it's just kind of taking the formula and mixing it up a little bit. And yeah, that guy's he's a good actor, good addition, and he certainly has even more to do in the third season.
Hmm.
But yeah, I thought he's a really was a really strong addition to these last few episodes of this second season.
Absolutely. And yes, the money train sequence itself is very cool too. And man, that it's just such a striking ending. There's this
Oh yeah,
gigantic pile of money on the table that they're just sort of, oh my god, we did this kind of
yeah,
energy.
yeah. Just
Like, oh, this is for real. Oh shit.
hmm
That's an exciting way to end the show. And it's also sort of an image that has then been used in other shows. I mean, prominently Breaking Bad has a very similar moment,
yeah,
but I think I've
yes.
seen it in other places too. It's just, it's such an anti-hero show thing to have. It's
Sure, yeah, it's like,
like just taken by just kind of, whoa, there it
we've
all
spent
is. It's real.
so much time trying to get all this money, and now we've got it. And what do we do now? Because basically,
Hmm.
just
Well, yeah, more money, more problems, of course.
well, exactly, yeah. Like now, what do we do? It's so I think yeah, the way that they end this season, and yeah, they've ultimately accomplished what they set out to do, but yeah, it's only setting up more problems for them, which obviously gets explored in season three. So yeah, it's a perfect way to end this season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there are no bad seasons of The Shield. That's for sure. Like,
Right.
there's some that are better or worse. I think when this originally aired, my opinion is this was a bit of a holding pattern season. It was kind of doing season Shield things. I think, as I said, I didn't. I watched the first 3 seasons or so as just on Netflix DVDs. Just shooting through it, and this kind of felt like, this was kind of just a solid episodes of The Shield. It's not really a season I would have much to say about. It's kind of just doing its thing, being a show. In rewatch, having knowing where it's all going, is oh no, this is crucial
Oh
structure
yeah.
for everything that's going to happen. And man, I am curious. Did they know? Did they know what they were doing, or did they just really do a good job of writing going forward? Did they have a massive plan scheduled? Did they? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. I think they just rolled with
Y-
their punches extremely well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know the answer to that. But I would think, to me, the best shows have a clear understanding of how they should start, and a very clear understanding of how they should end, and then you've got wiggle room in the middle,
Right.
because you don't know exactly how long you're going to go for. So yeah, you may have to come up with new ideas and new stuff to pad out the middle, but you at least have a very good sense of how it should start and how it should end. And I gotta believe that was in place for this series. At least that much feels like it was true, that they knew where it was headed, just not necessarily the twists and turns it might take along the way.
I guess the building blocks are so elaborate, though. Like, it's so well structured, and it feels
Yeah.
like it's so built on itself that I almost wonder how much of a show bible, or existing outline was there to go from, because it feels like if they had planned this whole thing out immaculately beforehand, it couldn't very well have been more satisfying than how it ends up. I, I'm gonna look into this. I'm gonna see what people
Yeah,
have said about this, Sean Ryan and
it
such. Yeah.
well, in that it's interesting because I just watched Sean Ryan, the show that he did for Netflix, The Night Agent.
Oh, that's him. I didn't
I
even realize.
just yeah,
How is
he's
it?
that's it's not that great.
Oh.
It's
Mm-hmm.
basically kind of sub 24 type stuff.
Oh.
Just
Yeah.
a lot
Okay.
of like, oh, now that's the bad guy. Oh no, now that's the bad guy, and just
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow. I mean, it's like, and I understand that he's a guy that he's worked in television for a long time, so he knows the kind of shows that sell, and he so this is a show that people this is the kind of show people want now, where it's just kind of a lot of kind of empty thrills, and oh, this person was a good guy last week, now they're a bad guy this week, and it was a
You're
real
not selling me
letdown.
on it.
So
That's for sure.
no,
Yeah.
it's just not that good.
Okay.
I was kind of the first couple episodes I was sort of with it, and I was like, all right, this might be a good sort of an action spy type FBI whatever series, but it's really just kind of bad. When I say 24, and I liked 24 for the most part, but this is like the bad
Sure.
24, like the
Oh, I know what
when
that means.
24 is at its
There was
worst.
plenty.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. I mean, that's too bad.
yeah,
Yeah, because this does feel like, I mean, like you can see like Kurt Sutter, you can be like, okay, I see what he added to the Shield here, like because I've seen his other
yeah.
shows, and I
Hmm.
can see the things that maybe weren't his strong set that the Shield had. I assume those were Sean Ryan because I don't really know the Sean Ryan kind of. I don't know. I haven't watched his other shows per se, and maybe I should, although probably not the Night Agent. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's, I think he's a guy that is very talented, but he's sort of figured out how to make. He's figured out maybe that a show like The Shield, as great as it was, it maybe isn't going to have the mass appeal, as if he's
Mm.
doing the network version, the new version of SWAT. That's another one of his
Okay.
shows,
Yeah,
and
I'm not
so it's
watching it.
like I
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
even though Billings does show up a couple times on SWAT. I did. You can see his
I
appearances on
yeah.
on YouTube, but
Fine.
just
Okay.
just
Oh, the
just to
actual
kind of
the
throw that out
character
there.
Billings? That's
The
kind of fun.
character of Billings.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
little interesting. All right.
yeah, yeah.
Just like the actor,
So
I don't care. The character, I'm a little more into.
no, yeah, yeah. Well, that guy's a good actor.
Sure, but I'm
But
not
he
following him
he
to a show.
no, no, I hear you. Yeah. So yeah, it's like he's as 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 much as the Shield sort of put Sean Ryan on the map. I think he's
Hmm.
just never really had a show that's been on that level since. And look, there
Fair
really
enough.
haven't been many
It's
shows
hard to do.
period on that level.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like
Uh-huh. David Chase has
it's
never
like
quite topped the
it,
wire. It's fine.
yeah, it's just it's hard to do. I mean, these landmark shows, they only come around so often. So
Hmm.
that's just the make and break of it.
Okay, so as we finish up here with season two, I guess the thing we haven't talked about is Lainey, the civilian auditor, played by Lucinda Jenny, and her major running plot, which is that she's coming in to be like, okay, I'm inspecting how
Right.
the barn works, and I'm going to write you up if you're not good, and there
Yeah.
might be a political reason that she's chasing after Aceveda, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, this is probably the most conventional thing the show does this season, and it's for a show with high stakes generally. This is one I'm kind of not worried much about. I'm not too concerned how the civilian audit is going to turn out. Obviously, it does kind of have a little bit more weight than I would imagined it would. Danny losing her job at the end, for example, stuff like that
Mhm.
happens as a
Mhm.
result of it. But so they follow through on it, but it's not as interesting as the Money Train or Armadillo.
No,
I think Lucinda
it's
Jenny's good, kind of doing the sexy, boring thing that,
yeah,
is
it's
the
kind
Lucinda
of a
Jenny thing. Yeah.
sort of a nag of a character.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I liked the one moment where she thinks that Dutch is coming on to her, and basically
Classic.
chastises him. So that was a good scene. I enjoyed that,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was just kind of one of those C storylines that it
Hmm.
didn't really. When she would show up, I wasn't like, oh great, we're gonna get more auditor scenes, this is fantastic. I did like her attempt to try to get Tavon to basically be her snitch,
Yeah, that's
and
fun.
him,
Hmm.
that was good. That was a good, that was a good character building scene for Tavon. But yeah, overall, I that storyline didn't really light a fire for me.
It has
Didn't
the
burn my necklace.
one thing I do have to give it credit for is that you're very much on Vic and Aceveda's side throughout the whole thing, which
Oh
is
yeah,
objectively the wrong place to be. Like we might not love Lainey, but she's obviously the right person here. She's she's
yeah,
I
oh
guess a
yeah.
little compromised in that she's kind of doing a political act. That she is she's here for at the behest of somebody to
Yeah.
score a political achievement against Aceveda, but at the same time she's just sort of like, well, these criminal people shouldn't be doing criminal things in as cops is sort of her main thing. We're
Yeah.
just like, oh, shut up, Laney, I'm not interested in
Yeah.
that. We got to get Armadillo.
Go push your
I think,
pencils. We
yeah.
don't care what you have to say here.
So I think that it doesn't exactly, it's not doing anything incredible in that on that front, but it is effective. It's putting us
Yeah.
explicitly on Vic's side. We are very much like, even as we're acknowledging like Vic's a scary dude and a wrong guy and
Mhm.
bad, all that. Yeah, sure. We want him to do that.
Mhm.
We're on his side this season very much. We are not rooting for the
Yes.
civilian audit to cost him his
No.
job. That's yeah.
No. I
And
mean,
we also
we
know,
look.
I think, that that's not going to be the case as well. I mean, that seems fairly straightforward, obviously, from the
Right. I
beginning.
mean, I think the questions that we ask ourselves with regards to Vic with this season: do we want him to take down Armandillo? Yes. Do we want do we want him and his guys to take down the money train? Yes.
Yeah.
So whatever problems that we have with Vic and how he does it, ultimately we're on his side, and that's one of the brilliant aspects of the show.
Okay. Again, I think we kind of held off on Vic here. Let's talk about Vic here to finish out.
Okay.
I love Vic, as always. Great performance. Really great character. I think that I have to give the show credit, even as we are on his side to stop Armadillo and and even steal the money train. They are already layering in the monstrous shit with him, and they're doing it with his family, and it's great.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, oh man, he basically like stalking and tormenting his ex-wife, or not his ex-wife at this point, just his
Yeah.
estranged wife after the events of season 1. She's on the run, has no idea what to do. He's spending tens of thousands of dollars to get like
Yes.
national PIs chasing her down,
Yeah,
and being a real creep about it.
I liked Mark Rolston as his private eye.
He's
That was
so
a good
good.
character. Yes.
He's so awesome. What a
He's just
sleazebag.
he,
He's
yeah.
fantastic.
And then I like when Vic basically just gets manhandled by that other private eye. He's like that big football player looking linebacker private eye. He just kind of like manhandles Vic in that one scene. So yeah, like that is true. That the way they portray Vic dealing with his family issues, that's the monster side of Vic for this season
Mm-hmm.
is just seeing how all that shakes out.
And another really incredible thing about the writing and Chiklis's performance is you understand why he's behaving the way he's behaving. You get it. He's obviously got alpha male issues, and control issues and dominance issues. But more than that, like, he's processing so much other shit, so much life and death, scary Armadillo shit, job stuff, Aceveda, every other thing in the world, the money train, that of course he's a bit of a blunt instrument when it comes to his family, and when he comes and he's supposed to help tutor his daughter or something, and they change the
Yeah.
locks and no one will let him in, and his son's screaming and he breaks in, like stuff like that. You get
Yes.
why he's behaving that way. He's too stressed to deal with all this,
Sure.
to have
Sure.
any sort of emotional intelligence about what his wife is feeling about this. He's
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
too much other issues going on, but that doesn't make it any less monstrous or blatantly unsuccessful. Like, his entire approach and tactics are just back asswards, all sorts of wrong for dealing with Corinne and his family. Especially, I love this. This is my favorite writing thing. This is a season with some obvious broad writing. I was my the sequence with him basically being convinced by the PIs that he's been leaning on all season that his wife is going to divorce him, uh, leading him to try to divorce her first and
Yeah, yeah,
therefore destroying his marriage just
yeah.
because he just got riled up by these dudes and fucks everything
Right.
up as a result. I did not see that coming. I thought that was great. Real good author of your own demise stuff right there.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's those are some of the best parts of this season. I mean, they I eh, basically every decision he seemingly makes regarding his family is the wrong one, and it's just one bad decision
Mm-hmm.
right after another, and yeah, it plays out beautifully.
And a great performance as always by Michael Chiklis.
Oh yeah,
It's really really difficult to understate how effective he is in this show and how just engaging this character is on screen.
yeah.
Just
Oh,
watching him solve
totally.
problems, think about stuff, do it wrong, come up with a solution because he did it wrong. All that stuff is so good. He's a blast, and yeah, I mean, what a great piece of casting. A legendary performance. I can't get enough of him
Yeah,
in the
it's
role. Man.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's amazing, how quickly he can go from charming to scary. It's like almost, seemingly in the same scene. He can turn on the charm, and then he can
Mm-hmm.
just become a total psycho. And it's yeah, it's he Chiklis is so good in this role. And yeah, rewatching the series now, it's like loved it back when it was originally going, and loving it even more now.
Another thing I will give credit to for this season. Really liked Connie this year. That's his prostitute girlfriend, right? The yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I thought
yeah,
an elegant way of writing her out of the show. I thought an effective one,
yeah.
and
That God, that was
and
a
then
what a crazy scene. Jeez,
yeah,
that's
uh, crazy
uh,
episode. Uh,
yes.
Battered women's shelter full of dead bodies.
Oh
That's
yeah,
that shield excess that we've been talking about. Yeah, and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, that's sort of a high pressure, just sort of standalone episode as well. It doesn't have, not involved in the rest of the season, but sort of an all hands on deck deal with this scary problem this week that the show is also very good at
yeah.
doing. So
That was
yeah.
that's
Mhm.
a heavy one. That's
Yeah.
kind of textbook. Shield, isn't this world an awful place?
Yes.
Now we'll cut to commercial. It's
Hmm.
just um yeah, that's a very heavy episode. I guess we do get a little bit we get a little bit beyond just that episode, because Vic kind of has a relationship with the woman who was running the shelter.
Right.
So she sort of pops up here and there. And then I think what it wasn't it it was her stuff being in his apartment that Corinne saw that
Yeah.
kind of caused her
Hmm.
to lose her shit. So yeah, that's oh man, yeah, that whole crime scene is pretty scary stuff.
Okay. So who's the worst person this season?
I mean, again, I guess I'm gonna go the obvious route, and I'm gonna go with Armandillo.
Yeah, it's Armadillo. It's got to be Armadillo. He's a nightmare monster, man. Yeah.
Yes, once you see the tattoo on the little girl, it's gonna be pretty tough to be a worse character this season than
Hmm.
him. And he 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 was I think a great foil. I love a lot of his scenes with Vic and the rest of the strike team. I mean, look, he burned a big chunk of Ronnie's face, and anybody that does that kind of harm to Ronnie is a bad person in my book. So
Hmm.
I go Armandillo.
Yeah, must agree. And
Hmm.
I mean, the best person remains Claudette Wims. Got to right. I mean, there's not
Yeah.
nobody's really jumping to take her spot. I would say.
No, no.
Yeah.
She's kind of firmly entrenched
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
that position as kind of the most the most sane and respectable of the whole bunch. And it's not really a high bar to clear with the other characters that are in the barn. But yeah, she remains kind of a cut above everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's season 2. Any last parting thoughts here? Anything that we neglected to mention? Need to mention?
Um, I guess if I had to mention one thing, there was the, the episode towards the end of the season where Jeff Kober plays a guy who may or may not have had intercourse with an underage employee of his. And
It's
it's
not bad.
funny because it's like as soon as you see Jeff Kober, it's like he's guilty of something. It's like how are they going to try to portray that maybe he's this normal, upstanding citizen? It's like that's Jeff Kober. Of course, I don't care what you're being accused of. You're guilty of it. And sure enough, he was guilty of it. And so yeah, that just kind of made me laugh. It's like maybe not the best casting if you're trying to get sort of a normal, upstanding, just small business owner. Don't go with Jeff Kober.
Another mean-spirited little story for the show, by the way.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. She's lying about being raped, and her mom's helping her. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shield. Oh, but don't worry, the guy's bad too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic Shield. All right,
Yep.
So season 3 next. I gotta say, this is the season I remember least. Basically, my main memory is Aceveda's no good, very bad day.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, I'm kind of like,
that
what
will stay
happens
with
in
you.
season 3 again? Oh yeah. So I'm excited to get to that. It is the longest season of the Shield.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You're pretty well into it at this point, but
Yeah.
that'll be the next one we talk about. So
Perfect.
Thank you, Chris, once again for coming and talking about the Shield with me. This is quite rewarding. Love this show. It totally holds up to rewatch, and it only kind of ramps up. So thanks, man.
Yeah.
We'll be back to it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye.